Hey y'all, it's Michael Che Romero, and this is Mondays with Michael, and my next guest is...
David Burke, aka Hungry Ghost, here in Oakland, California.
All right. Well, thanks for having us out here. Appreciate you, brother. You know, thanks for answering my call, man.
Absolutely.
You know, respect. So yeah, tell us. I'm hungry for the knowledge of the ghost. I want to know about the name first and foremost, and then kind of tell us where that started. Yeah, tell us about it.
So the Hungry Ghost, it's a Buddhist term, and I spent a couple years living and teaching in Thailand, and kind of was immersed in the culture there. And it's a spirit that has sort of an appetite for destructive behavior.
Okay.
And it's something that we all have inside of us, and it's a spirit that you need to make peace with in order to thrive in this world instead of trying to fight it. So I think about that a lot as an artist. I think about the doubts we have and the challenges that we face. So that's part of the Hungry Ghost name. And then just in terms of just the language itself, as artists, you have to stay hungry. You have to keep pushing to evolve and grow. And then the ghost piece is more kind of about my character in the sense that I don't necessarily want to be in the spotlight. I just want to make work that speaks for itself. And kind of be behind the scenes, do the thing, be in the community. And so it kind of works for me on multiple levels.
Yeah, love it, man. I had no idea. You know what I mean? This is the treat of talking to artists. You know, this is like just a privilege and honor to get to know you and, you know, dive deeper, you know. Where did it all start for you? Like this artist mentality, like this creative intellect, this idea of like creating from nothing. Where did it all begin?
I didn't have many role models growing up of working artists in the world, but I always gravitated towards it and was always drawing and doing things. And then in high school, took more art classes, and as if I matured, I've just found myself, like when all my friends were out partying, I'd just be at home drawing, and kind of just not for any reason other than just it felt right. And then when I decided to go to college, started off in the sciences and was minoring in art, and I just found that I was spending all of my time my art classes, and decided to listen to that, and so I swapped my major and my minor, and just that's where it began. And that was down in San Diego. Had some really great mentors down there, and helped kind of get me on the path
for sure
for the last 35 years.
Yeah, no, same. The cool thing about that story, I had the same story is I took some art classes during I was a finance major, right? Then I took some art classes, and I was like, I loved it. I was like, what am I doing? So I went to my college counselor, and he's like, here's what you do. If you want to do finance, you're going to be in an office sitting in all day long, looking at a computer doing work. You want to do that? And I said no. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be an artist. I want to make money and be professional. He says, then do what you love, you know, and follow that.
There's a trade-off, though. The trade-off, you know, is with those two paths is the stability, the kind of all of the boxes that having a job like that check, and you know, and so that's what you lose when you take this other path of becoming an artist, but then you gain this whole other side of experiencing life in a different way. And it's very unpredictable, it's very unstable, but there's a lot of beauty in it too.
Yeah, I mean, can you be honest with me? Do you have any moments of anxiety? And then share with us, how do you overcome those feelings of anxiety?
Well, for young artists that are listening to this,
yes,
I will say that that anxiety, that doubt, even that imposter syndrome that you might be feeling. I hate to say it doesn't go away. However, you learn how to manage it as you get older, as you gain experience. And, I think what I've learned to do is, that voice is still there, that doubt is still there, but I've learned how to turn the volume down. And that takes work. It's a lot of work, and you have to be disciplined about it, because I think we all struggle with that in different ways. And this is not just painters, muralists, this is musicians, actors, dancers, poets. That's part of the struggle of going deep into your creative self and getting lost. But that's where you have to go to find the good stuff. And so it's just part of the package deal. I think. Yeah.
It's definitely part of the artist's journey for sure. And the volume, turning the volume down, brother, I understand that 100%. It's always there. But for me, I think surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals, that being musicians, poets, intellectuals, I think for me, like any creative job is, I think we have that kind of, is this going to be enough? Is this going to be? But what I've understood in my journey in life is that when I focus on the vision, really not what others think, but what your vision is, and you just do it, and that for me is it's not only cathartic, but it feels good. And you don't care about what anybody else thinks. It's what you think, and then you're able to defend that, like in a critique. And you intellectually can talk about your piece and the connections it means to you, to the audience, and then responding and seeing what the audience says is kind of an enlightenment for me. It's just it creates more connection. But this is what I also love doing. I don't know if you've ever done this, but not telling, when somebody sees your mural or somebody sees your piece, and not telling them, giving them no context, and then then you ask them, what do you think about this? What does this mean to you? And some of those conversations I've had with these viewers is that they tell you something that you've never seen before, and it invokes these feelings of connection inside of them, and you had no idea that this piece would make them feel that way and give them context, and it makes it more powerful. So it's like, for me, it's this twofold, where you have the viewer viewing it, and then the viewer who has the context when they read it before. So I think the most powerful one is the first one, where the viewer has no concept of what you were trying to speak about, but they just observe it based off of their own interpretation, where they've grown up, the political structure, the geographic, the demographic, and where they were raised. They have this interpretation of what they think, and then hearing that, and if it's like, for me, it's magic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So where did you grow up? I'm just curious. Where did you grow up? Like high school? Like tell us that path, that educational path.
So I grew up here in the Bay Area. I was born in Alameda.
Okay.
And then have lived in Oakland pretty much all of my adult life. And I think the cool thing about growing up here is just the incredible amount of culture, the music, the art, all of the parts, even the sports teams growing up here. This is my favorite place in the world. I've lived in Southern California, I've lived on the East Coast, I've lived abroad, but I've always come back here, and there's something magical about this place. There's something about the people that are from here and the artists that are from here, that it's not just the creativity, but it's the activism that's embedded in the DNA of people from Oakland.
Yep.
And then there's, I think, a sense of play here in the Bay Area that I think is really important to the work that a lot of artists make. I think about the director who was formerly a musician, still is, but Boots Riley, who's has a new movie coming out, but he's from Oakland, and he weaves in this cultural critique of capitalism, but also there's humor, there's play, and I think that there are a lot of artists in the Bay that kind of tap into that frequency in terms of how they express themselves.
What's this movie about, by the way? You can drop it. I don't.
Oh, it's
I'm interested.
It's called I Love Boosters, and it's about a crime ring in San Francisco of this group goes around and robs high-end retailers and then resells the clothes like as a community service. He also his first movie was Sorry to Bother You, which is also amazing. All of his work is set in Oakland and the Bay Area, so he's one of the people that I really look up to and admire. And
are you guys friends?
We used to be neighbors.
Okay, cool.
And now and actually he's going to be featured in the next Love Letter to Oakland mural. So it's but he's just one example of so many. You have Ryan Coogler, who's nominated for 16 Oscars, Sinners. You have so the musicians. It's so rich here, and I feel really fortunate to be a part of that conversation.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
As far as your murals, are they in any films out here, or just I was just curious.
Maybe it's funny. One of the my early murals in LA, we worked at a middle school in South Central, and it was we featured the students in the jazz band, and so we painted them like 50 feet high, and that was there was this movie called Aquila and the Bee back in the day, and it was in that. So that was kind of my first taste of like, oh, someone actually is seeing this.
Right.
And I think the cool thing about being a muralist is that you paint something and it's just out in the world and has a life of its own.
Yes.
And the people that live with it and see it every day, or see it on their way to work, they become part of your routine, part of your visual landscape, and people grow to really love them. So last year, Martin Luther King Jr. birthday, someone tagged a mural of Martin Luther King Jr. It was near Lake Merritt, and this was painted back in the 80s by a muralist, Susan Green, and she worked with some students. It's a very small, very humble
historic
piece.
Though. Historic, yeah.
Underneath 580, and it sat there, and finally Pancho Pescador, who's one of my collaborators, we had a day off, and we're like, let's just go out and fix this. So we went out there, and we spent the day restoring it, kind of bringing it back. And a number of people that stopped and said, hey, I grew up with this piece, I love this piece, I remember when it was painted, thank you.
Yes.
It was a reminder to us that even these small, quiet street art pieces, that the community has a relationship with them.
Yes.
And they love them, and they need to be protected, and we need to kind of be mindful, not just about making new murals and new art in the world, but taking care of those cultural assets that do exist. A lot of cities only focus on the new, and they don't put any resources towards taking restoration. And so I'm a big advocate for that, and I just think that it needs to be a priority.
Absolutely. We have several of these murals in Los Angeles, particularly from the '84 Summer Olympics.
Love those.
That have been they're on the 110 and then also the 101, but downtown that have gotten painted, tagged, buffed, and there is no call for restoration. And it's devastating. But they should have. I believe that cities should have a budget for restoring.
Well, so there's to go one step further. You have all of this money, all of these resources going towards graffiti abatement, which in 2026 is a complete joke, because what graffiti abatement essentially is you're paying someone to drive around with some buff
Yes.
and prime walls for the graffiti artist to then paint it that night.
Yes.
And it is, and so instead,
Let's talk about it.
why don't you take those resources, hire some young artists, hire a couple of elder artists that can mentor them, that go around and take care of your cultural assets. And again, like many things in this country, when something is big business, like graffiti abatement is a multi-million-dollar business. The old heads don't want to let go of that money and let the ideas evolve. So, but it, again, there are ways that we can do this, and I'm hoping that as the years go on, that our leadership can start to understand what that means.
I don't know if you know about Meeting of Styles.
Yes.
So Meeting of Styles, shout out to Lalo in Los Angeles. Yes, last year, dude. I mean, we went crazy. He got partnerships. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of square feet of murals, of crews coming together, graffiti crews coming together collectively, and just painting the town.
Yeah.
And we know that if you have a graffiti piece that rocks, it's like you got Twist, Trickster. I mean, these pieces are still rocking.
Yes.
And they're respected in the community. And if anybody goes over anything, it's like you're on the list.
Yes.
The shit list. So, and if somebody comes into a neighborhood that has no affiliation or no connection with the community and just paints the mural here in Oakland, in bigger cities, the outcome, right?
I think that's
Talk about it.
that's a fine line.
Yeah.
Right?
It is.
There are a couple of angles to this. I think a lot of muralist street artists, especially young ones, they don't have the peripheral vision to understand that when you come into a neighborhood, and I'll say this, like, I live in Oakland. I've lived in Oakland for over 2 decades. But if I go paint a mural in East Oakland, West Oakland, North Oakland, every neighborhood has its own culture.
Yes.
Every neighborhood has its own unofficial mayor.
Yeah.
And you can't make an assumption about what people in the community there are about, what they're like, what they want to see.
Yeah.
And so, that's why I'm a big advocate for community engagement.
Yes.
Conversations with the community before you go in and make something. I know that's not always an option, but I think just being mindful about, because when a lot of muralists, like, if you paint something in a city or a state or a country or just a neighborhood where you don't live, you paint it and then you leave.
Yes.
And everyone that lives there has to look at it every day.
Absolutely.
So I think just being more mindful about how you move through the world and respecting the people that are in the neighborhoods that you work in is really important. That being said,
Yes.
now, sometimes you get invited to come to a new city or a new state as an artist, as a guest.
Right.
But you are a guest.
Yes.
You are not entitled to anything else. You are a guest of this community.
Absolutely.
And you need to respect that process and be mindful of it. So I think it's okay when artists come from other places to work in say Oakland, and I think that we should be more open to that. I think sometimes cities get a little too closed, and the local artists are like, no, this is our city, you can't come here. I think that we need to massage that a little bit, because it's healthy. A sign of a healthy art community is when you can invite artists from other countries or other places to come be a part of the visual conversation that's happening in your city without the local artist feeling threatened. But then again, we're all kind of fighting for the same small amount of resources that keep shrinking. And so I understand the sentiment of local artists wanting to feel supported by the city or local agencies, but so it's complicated.
Fair.
But I think it's part of what's interesting about our job.
Yeah. Well, I think, David, for me, the magic about our job is connecting with the neighborhood, having those meetings, getting those meetings when you're coming into the neighborhood and talking to them, right? And taking your time and understanding what they value, and then them getting to know you.
Yes.
You know, and I think that for me is one of the most, for me, that's one of the most, that's one of the best things about being a mural artist and a public artist, is having that opportunity to talk to people in that neighborhood. And honestly, I will get off my ladder and I will take my time to talk to them if they have questions. And I think that even that in itself that's a connection and a sign of respect for me to do that, because they're like, why are you here? What are you doing? And for me, it's an honor, actually.
It's the best part of the job.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then what we did in this previous project over in Commerce is we actually connected with the neighbors, and we have their phone numbers, and they said, we'll call if anything happens to the mural, we'll call, make sure we're protected.
Well, they're stewards of the wall at that point.
Yeah.
And if you don't build those relationships, if it gets tagged, they're just going to let it burn.
Yeah.
And so it's, if you really want your work, the work that you do, to be understood and seen and respected by the communities you're working in, you have to connect with them. And I think it's one of the most important parts of our job.
Yeah. And the most rewarding too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's imperative. It's a double-edged sword on that thing. But I think that is. I think that should be just etched and ingrained in every mural artist. Is wherever you're doing a mural, make sure you have a connection to that place.
Yeah.
At least with the businesses, local community leaders in that community.
Yeah. And I think a part of that comes down, like, as we get older, like now,
wiser.
We're getting older, and now we're looking around, and we're kind of the old heads that are making. There was the generation before us that paved the trail, and paved the way for us, and now they're winding down, and they're seeing what we're doing. But it's our job to make sure that we're talking to young artists, mentoring them, and having these conversations about how to do this. Understanding that the minute you pick up a brush and you paint a wall, you're part of this lineage, you're part of this history that goes back hundreds, thousands of years.
Yes.
And it's nothing new. So you're part of that conversation, and I think you gotta respect that history and understand it to help inform you as you grow. But it requires us at this point. This is something I talk a lot about with the artists that I work with, is just how we're doing that, and making that a priority over these next 10 years as we're kind of doing our thing. It's we have to be bringing the next group up.
Right. Not gatekeeping, but actually training and teaching the next generation.
No, it's the gatekeeping. It's all good. It's easy to forget that when you're younger, all you want to do is feel seen. And some of these some muralists and street artists, the work that they're doing is light years ahead of the work that I was doing when I was their age. And when they're our age, they're going to be raising the bar even higher, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So we have to celebrate that and make sure that we're helping them along.
Absolutely. Another question for you is, how do you navigate this landscape of ever-changing muralismo? It's, as you and I know, 10 years ago, it was less competitive. Now, 10 years now, you got thousands of more artists coming in, and how do you navigate kind of that? Because in my industry, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. There's mural artists that do free murals. They don't charge for their work, unfortunately, just to get their name out there, right? And it's tough, but I can't compete against free. But for me, I think it's more of an educational system where we have to teach these young artists and mid-career artists that the value is imperative, right? And so how do you instill that and ingrain that?
So let's pick that apart.
Yeah, let's go.
So let's go back to the 80s, when there were maybe a handful of muralists in each town. Absolutely. At most.
Yes.
I remember in the early 80s when there was a piece near Lake Merritt called The Grand Performance, painted by Danielle Galvez, Keith Sklar, and they were trailblazers here in the Bay. And I remember, I was 8 when that was painted. I remember sitting in the back of the car and seeing this piece and just being mesmerized and seeing the magic. Dan Font, Susan Green, Juan Alicia, Susan Cervantes, that they kind of set the bar, and they were the ones, and there were more that I'm missing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you fast forward to kind of 2010 and 2015, you have this renaissance of street art, right? And since then, it's just been exploding more and more and more. And now everyone that picks up a brush or a can is a muralist or thinks they are, right?
Yes.
So, which is not a bad thing, but what it again, it kind of goes back to sort of how we're educating young people, how we're talking about this practice.
Right.
Now, I will say that my advice to young muralists who are like, how do I start? I tell them, look around your neighborhood, find a liquor store, find a market, and offer them a mural. And just ask them to pay for materials. Here's why. Because you don't have the experience, you don't have the portfolio, you have to start building it. No one is going to hand it to you on a silver platter. They're not going to give you $50 a square foot to paint the side of their building. You have to start somewhere. And so if you're able to have conversations with people in your neighborhood about, okay, we'll give you this wall, we'll pay for the paint. I have no problem with a young artist cutting their teeth and trying to figure out if this is even something they want to do.
For sure.
And the quality, it can fluctuate, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I've been doing this for 30 years. We still will go out and paint for free sometimes.
Community service.
Well, it's that.
Or it depends on the. I get you.
But you talk about like how in our industry things ebb and flow. You're at the mercy of the economy. You're at the mercy of a government now who has cut all arts funding and does not support artists. And then you have these lean times. And then as an artist, you have a choice to make. You can sit on the couch, be like, I'm not going to get off the couch for under $30 a square foot. You're going to be sitting on the couch for a long time. We just want to paint. We want to get out and make things and be out in the community. So with the piece that we just did in Jack London called Breathe In, Breathe Out, we painted that in December. We had a project lined up for December. It got pushed to 2026. And we had this window. Like, what are we going to do? So we reached out to our friend. He's an artist, James Shields. He goes by Creative Shields. He has a studio in Jack London, and he curates the walls on the outside of his space. And he noticed there was an empty spot. So I hit him up and I was like, can we come paint this? He said, of course. And so we spent a week just making the thing that we wanted to make. The beauty of that is when you're not getting paid is that you have all the creative freedom to say what you want to say. And it can, and I think what happens with a lot of muralists, especially when you're doing client work, is you can get lost. You can lose your voice really easily, really quickly, if you are just translating someone's idea for them.
Without pushing back.
And if you don't find room and space to say the things you want to say with your work, you're going to wake up in 5, 6, 7 years and not know what you're trying to say. So I hear what you're saying about muralists doing work for free and how it can undercut professional artists that are trying to make work in the world. but I do think that there's got to be space for young artists to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And just even answer that question, like, do I even like this? Because it's hard. It's painting in a studio.
Yeah.
You control the light. You can put your music on. You control who comes in and out. Everything you have control over. You go out on a wall, you have control over nothing. Who walks by, what the weather's going to be like, how hot it is, and that could be really hard for artists to adapt to, and you're very exposed. And so I don't know, I hear you about the how to charge, but I've been doing this for 30 years and I'm still struggling to figure that out in terms of how to value the work, and when you're doing work in the community, when you're working with certain clients, I think for all artists, you have to be prepared that there's a scale. Sometimes you're going to get paid what you deserve to be paid, and sometimes not. And you have to be flexible, or else you're going to be sitting on the couch for a long time. You hear what I'm saying?
No, I feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, I mean, for portfolio building, it's good. Because if you don't have anything, you're as you know and I know, if you don't have any work, then how does it speak?
Yeah.
But when you're established, I mean, the work speaks for itself. For me, community service is a huge part of my practice too, and giving back to like nonprofit organizations, to like firehouses, but like paying for the supplies is crucial.
Bare minimum.
Yeah,
bare minimum.
Bare minimum. But yeah, no. Let's talk about. I want to kind of pivot on this and kind of talk about. I want to go back to like 10 years ago. That mural you guys painted. It was about 10 artists. One of the artists was Antonio, and I kind of want to dive into that day now, because I think all of us remember that. All of us mural artists remember that day and that time. It was fucking horrific. But if you don't mind sharing, I'd really appreciate that.
So that, just to create some context.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So that is an ongoing mural project that started around 2012, 2013 called Oakland Superheroes Mural Project.
Yes.
And the idea is we go into schools, we work elementary, middle schools, high schools, and there's a curriculum that we walk the students through, and it's called the Self as Superhero.
Yeah.
Where the students reflect on what it means to be a superhero, what it means to be a community superhero, and thinking about attributes in themselves and their classmates that kind of can be special.
Right.
And they make drawings, they write in their journals, and we take all that raw material and we have artists translate that into these 200-foot by 20-foot long murals underneath the freeways in West Oakland. And so I was the lead artist on the first one. Then Rifa One, who's part of Aerosol, did the second one. And then the third one, which was in 2015, was led by Javier Rocabado. He was the lead artist, I was the art director. And the cool thing about these projects is not only do you have students involved in every aspect of the design and painting, but we hire about 12 to 14 artists, junior artists, senior artists, everyone working together so that there's mentoring going on.
Absolutely.
And it's a big production. They're expensive to make because of all of the community work you're doing. And then we take over these spaces and we tell the stories of the young people growing up in Oakland. These are their direct stories. So I met Antonio Ramos on the first one, mural project, and he wasn't a part of the original mural crew But he lived in the neighborhood. He was skating by. He was super excited about the project.
Yes.
And we're like, cool, man. Next day, he shows up again. He's like, I want to help you guys out. I'm like, all right, grab a brush. Let's go.
Yeah.
And he started working with us. And the energy that he brought to the crew was just, he was like a beam of light. And just excited to be there and thirsty to learn the craft and do the work. And so we stayed in touch and we invited him back to work on the third project in 2015. And we've been on the wall for maybe a week. You know, and the thing that as street artists that we're all aware of is that when you're painting, when you're on a wall, your back is to the street, and you are totally exposed to anything or anyone who walks by, anything that happens. And there's this unspoken contract that we have with the community that we're going to take care of us, right? Because we're totally vulnerable. And especially if you're working, you know, like we work everywhere, and we often are working in the shadows. And you know, you're under an overpass, it's dark, it's loud, there's all of these factors, and so it's a lot. And so you can't necessarily see everybody who's walking by or track who's around. And that day we were all working and just feeling good, and the community was excited, and someone was walking by and he started to kind of approach our materials and our things, and Antonio was, you know, like, hey man, what's up, what are you doing, just checking in. And the guy was, you know, sort of kept walking, and I was on the far end of the wall and they were on the other end, and there was some sort of exchange, and in that instant it happens really fast. And you know, losing Antonio was devastating for our community here in Oakland, for his family, his friends, and I think muralists and street artists around the country. I mean, this was almost a global story, and a reminder of how vulnerable we are when we're working on these walls. And you know, I remember before this happened thinking about Antonio and thinking that he was going to be one of the next ones coming up. Like, he was still young, but he was figuring it out, and his hunger, his drive, his talent, that he was going to be one of the next ones. And I was so excited to keep working with him and see him grow, and we lost him. And you know, it impacted all of us in different ways. All of the artists that were on the wall that day, the community, you know, there was a grieving process. I think, you know, we're all still processing it, and it changed us forever. And we actually decided as a team to go back out a week later. We had a vigil, we had a memorial, we had kind of an altar for him. And as a team, we decided that we were going to go out and finish the mural in his honor. We kept the memorial, the candles lit, and it was part of the beginning of the healing process for us, even though everyone was very traumatized. It was important for the community to see that in honor of him that we completed the project. And for me personally, reflecting on that over the years after, I had to make a decision about how I wanted to be in the world and how I wanted to keep going or not. And I decided to commit myself in the same way that Antonio was committed to loving this work, loving being out in the community, loving painting, and carrying that spirit and honoring him in that way, and continuing to just hold him and hold his memory, and talk about him and share and just remember, and also how precious and fragile things can be when you're working out in the streets. You can't assume anything, and so there are risks involved in the work that we do, and you have to be, again, I think it still goes back to being mindful about how you move through the world and how you respect the communities that you work in. And again, this was random. It could have happened to anyone else.
Absolutely, yes.
But it's life is fragile.
It is. That tells you for sure. And then you guys recently restored that a couple months ago.
We did. So what happened was, during the pandemic, we have a crazy housing crisis in the Bay. Not just in the Bay. This is all cities across the country. People like to dump on Oakland and the Bay, but this is everywhere. Everywhere. And so there was a very developed homeless encampment in front of that wall for 5 years. And to the point where you couldn't really see the wall. You would get tagged, but you couldn't access it, so we just kind of had to wait.
Well, and then you get the fire.
You have fires.
There's always a fire. I see the fire mark on the wall, right?
So fires, and so when that encampment was finally cleared, we were able to go back and really assess the extent of the damage. And I want to give a shout out to the organization. They're called Artisteam, long established nonprofit in West Oakland that's been doing community work for 35 years now. Amazing group that works with young people, and they're one of the few groups that are committed to paying the cost of maintaining the murals that they make. And so I have to just give them some love. For sure. And so they sent us back out, and that was also for us a meditation on the last decade, going back to that space where there's trauma, and honoring Antonio, honoring all the other artists that participated in that project, and again, the community response, people stopping and thanking us and talking to us about how much that piece meant to them. That's a big part of what this is about. And the cool thing is we have Oakland Superheroes mural number 5, the 5th one in this series that we're planning to do later this year.
Excellent.
Pancho Pescador is the lead artist on that, but it's just to keep it going,
right?
And keep telling the stories of the people in the community.
Well, no, I love that whole curriculum where you go into schools and you're teaching the younger generation. You guys are mentors. They look up to you, and then teaching them how to be how to be a superhero. You know what I mean? Because it's relative to me. I want to be a superhero too. And if you could choose a superpower, what would it be? That's it. And they're magical stories, and every mural has like the story behind it and all the characters. But I think that sometimes, especially young graffiti writers, they don't understand when they go tag a piece, especially in a place that they're not from, where these murals come from. And like what the stories are, and there are plenty of places to bomb, but these spaces are sacred spaces. And I think it kind of goes back to mentoring, and we can get into the graffiti world versus murals and that relationship, which I also think is an interesting dynamic. But just teaching young people about, there got to be some rules of engagement. You can't just go burn it all down. But that's, again, all these are part of this interesting dynamic in the ecosystem of street art and murals and graffiti and all of it. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. And here's the deal: if you find a wall, like I found a wall off of Mandela Parkway, right? It's the Iron Mountain building, and Vogue has a piece over there.
The skull.
And I reached out to Al. You know Al. He paints owls.
Yeah.
And I don't know him, but I knew him by his IG, right? And I seen his work when I was in Japan. I saw his stickers, and I took a picture and I sent it to him. So we have this kind of DM kind of social media relationship, But I asked him, I said, hey, what about this wall? And he's like, oh, this is a street political wall. If you're gonna do a piece up there, make sure you go high, so nobody can do it. So, and then having that knowledge was great. And then I knocked on the door, and I talked to the facilities building manager, and he gave me the facility director's number, and I told him I wanted to do this piece. And the next thing you know, I got permission from him. I sent him the piece too that night. It was in my mind. Got it out, and it was called Fear No More. It's this monster, and this kid confronting the monster, and that was actually me in my nightmare confronting the monster in my last nightmare. So for me, it was dark, but it fit, and so I painted it in 3 days, and I had other artists stop by, and I took my time. I talked to them, and everything was smooth, but it's still graffiti on the bottom, graffitied over, but it's still rocking a little bit, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And for me, I think that's the investigation, the curiosity, and the respect. Where if you don't understand something, kind of try to like reach out, and try to understand that community and know that environment,
The other part about this, though, too, is that street art is a wonderful meditation on the idea that everything is temporary.
Yes.
The minute you put something on a wall, you have no control.
Zero.
You don't live there. You're not watching it 24/7. So the minute you paint something, you have to let it go.
Yes.
If it doesn't tag and it runs, that's great. If it gets tagged and covered, that is part of this.
Yes.
And you can take it personally, but a lot of times it's not.
Yeah.
It just happens. And then we typically, as part of our practice, we take a day out of every month. We drive around Oakland. We check in on our murals. If there are any mosquito bites or anything, we cover those up. Just take it to let the writers know that there's someone tending to the wall and caring for it, and it's understood. And you have to be willing to, and we don't get paid for that, but you have to be willing to do that extra work if you want the community to see that, oh, these guys care.
Yeah.
And that respect, that is a universal language. And this idea of muralists versus writers, we need to start looking at that and start breaking down some of those barriers between those two worlds, because there's a lot of overlap in terms of the work that we do, the pride that we take in our work, the love for the community, everything's temporary.
Everything is.
So just hold it loosely.
Well, yeah, no, I understand. I think the big difference between majority of graffiti artists and us professional muralists, they're anonymous. These guys have regular they have jobs. Nobody knows who they are, and they get respect from putting their names up. And I used to do it, so I respect the game. We got freaking hopes in LA. It's just, you see this everywhere. I think AIDS here. You see these guys every single facet or orifice. Because as a street artist, as a muralist, and an ex-graffiti artist, I look at every single wall. I look for things. I saw when I was downtown Oakland. I think it was in Chinatown. I saw the sticker, and it was a Cabbage Patch sticker made hand drawn. It was Old Crow, the OG. And I was and I took a picture of it, and this was a treat, man, because I love I love the Garbage Pail Kids. So to see that sticker, and it was Old Crow, had like a cigarette, and was like looking back, doing a peace sign with a can in his hand. And I mean, it's these little, for me, it's these little things where art inspires art. Even graffiti pieces, like I see, are inspirational. Every single piece, not always is inspirational, but most of them, you know. And for me, I think the ones that really resonate with me the most are the ones that you see faces and symbols and icons of that specific location of that community, right? And that resonates with me. And you just don't, you're like, who is this person? And then if you go down the rabbit hole and investigate it, it's part of somebody that lives right down the street, or they're part of the community, right? Unlike just doing like A for A, where there's no kind of connection. You're just like, what is that? You know?
Well, I see it as like a visual symphony, right?
Yeah.
And this is a visual dialogue that is happening 24 hours a day. As muralists, we're out in the world, we're painting during the day. The writers come out at night, they're working in the shadows. And every day I wake up and I'm driving to the studio, I see something new.
Yep.
And I love it. And like that dialogue, that back and forth is so rich and interesting. I think a mistake that a lot of muralists make is because they think that because what they're doing is sanctioned, that it's somehow better. And I just want to tell young muralists right now that is just not the case. The work that the writers do and the community that they have and the history that they have is so rich and so important. And you wouldn't be doing the work that you're doing without that history.
Absolutely.
And without that work and the risks that they take. It is different.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that you, like, if you don't come from that culture, that you can't figure out a way to participate in the conversation, but you have to respect it and respect the writers that are doing that work and the risks that they take.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we've been doing a lot of work just trying to have those conversations with writers and sort of building community around that, because there is this friction that exists, because a lot of there are young writers that do want to get paid for what they do and do want to be seen as legitimate artists, and they are legitimate artists.
Yes.
And their process is different. And I think, again, as elders, it's our responsibility to start those conversations and start giving young people the tools to get paid to do what they do and make that transition if they want to. Some people just want to bomb, which is cool too.
And live in the shadows.
And live in the shadows and go to work and then just go out and bomb. And, you know, it's part of that symphony.
Yes.
And we're all part of it. You don't get to choose to be outside. And so I think, and that's another thing what I love about Oakland and the Bay is that conversation all day, every day. And I love it.
No, it is, It's there's another organization, the Meeting of Styles, and I got to be part of it because I'm friends with Kipto, and he was part of this. They let him in, which was great because he doesn't have a graffiti background, but he has a street art. He has the street art, the muralist background, and I love to see how they're welcoming muralists into this system, into this environment, which I love because it's giving everybody gravitas and this connection, this collaboration, which I think is needed. You know. Well,
what the graffiti community understands better than the mural community is community.
Yeah.
And that brotherhood, that sisterhood, that culture, the love and respect that they have for one another. Muralists sometimes make the mistake of siloing themselves and feeling like they're outside of the community. And I mean, you mentioned this earlier, but about surrounding yourself with people that support you and see your work. But being in community is the most important part of being an artist. You cannot do this alone. If you think you can do it and be on an island, you're going to have a really hard time. And being in community, supporting other artists, clapping for them when they succeed or they get an opportunity, not just punching the hands emoji on your iPhone, but reaching out to them and saying, hey man, congratulations.
Oh yeah.
We have to like support each other.
For sure, bro.
And it's critical because it goes back to that feeling of like, is anyone seeing what I'm doing? Am I an imposter? Does anyone care?
Yeah.
And we have to foster that support. And it's hard. It is, the Bay Area is prohibitively expensive. It is crippling how expensive it is to live here. And the economic anxiety that we all struggle with is so real. And we're all trying to figure it out.
Right.
But it doesn't mean you can't humble yourself and celebrate artists that are getting opportunities. Because when you get an opportunity, you're going to want their support as well.
Absolutely.
So I think it goes back to like this community piece is so huge.
Yes, and I think we lost that. I don't think it's taught that like we live on these islands, right? And I'm like Dada wasn't an island. It was an art movement, a collective of intellectuals, artists, poets, musicians, everybody together in a collective. And for me, that only makes us stronger, man, and makes us more valuable in having community, right? Because I tell these young artists, I said, if you guys have any questions, reach out to me. Like, I'll help you with pricing or help you if you have any questions about the process. Feel free. I'm here. You know, I just want to make you better, and I just want to make this piece last, generations. You know, but I agree with you, David, on the fact where we need more community. Like, reach out. I'll DM an artist. I'll send an email, and if there's a phone number, I'm calling.
Yeah.
You know, because it's important to me.
Yeah.
And if somebody, and I do the same thing here, is when somebody calls or reaches out to me, I will reach back out. You know?
I'm gonna say
It's okay.
that if you hadn't called me, we wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Yeah.
And I think, and again, for young artists, I know you guys don't like calling people, you don't like talking on the phone, and you like to text or do it because it's more comfortable. And calling someone, you're a little more vulnerable and exposed. But if you take that step, real things happen.
Yeah.
If you don't, it's much easier for, like, if you just send me a text or email, I've got like 100 things going on in my life, and it's not personal, but I may or may not even respond. But if you called me and we had a conversation, and that's how you cut through the noise. It's just, it's good.
Well, thanks for answering the call. Thanks for answering the call, man. I honestly, I was not going to stop calling until you answered the call.
It's all good. Yeah. And that sometimes you just have to be persistent because our lives are so full with family, work, kids, all the stuff.
Yeah.
And it's, make the call.
Well, here's, on that note, I got a question that I always ask, and I think this is important for us as OGs and elders and established artists is, what advice would you, David, give to the young David Burke that you learned in your practice in the 30 years you've been doing this? What advice would have helped you in that 30 years that you've learned, your younger self? What would have that advice would you give to your younger self?
First thing is there's no such thing as a big break. You get an opportunity and you do it. And if you expect that opportunity to lead to other things directly, you're going to be disappointed. When I painted my first big mural in West Oakland, this was the Oakland Superheroes mural back in 2013. I was like, I've done it, I made it,
right?
I'm gonna roll out the red carpet, and I'm good to go, and all these calls are coming in, and it's crickets. And then you're like, oh shit, did anyone see this? Does anyone care? And then you realize that you just have to keep showing up to work, and keep doing it, keep doing the thing, and putting creating a set of circumstances where when an opportunity comes up, you can take advantage of it.
Yes.
No one is going to come and just hand it to you. And, it's not, being an artist is not one leap of faith. It's many leaps of faith. But after you take that first leap, and you land and you look around and you're like, okay, I'm still here.
Right.
I can do this. Those next leaps, those next risks that you have to take to be an artist get easier. But you're gonna have to sacrifice something. You can't have it all. If you choose to be an artist in this world at this moment, there is a cost to doing the work that you do. And it could come, the easy one is the financial cost, the instability of the work, healthcare, all of these traditional things that come with traditional jobs. You're sacrificing that. There's cost with relationships, family, because what we do doesn't fit into the traditional structures of the 9 to 5 and regular workplaces that exist in our country. So there's all of that, and then I will say again, we've talked about it, but community is everything.
Yes.
And the sooner you start building community and building connections with people you admire, with your peers, and I'm not just talking about reaching out to the successful people. Look around at your peers and the people that are trying to do what you're doing and work with them, because in 10 years you don't know where they're going to be. If you're in school, maybe one of them is a curator, maybe one of them is a public art director.
Yes.
You don't know where people are going. And just find your people. It took me a really long time to find my people in terms of the people I wanted to work with. And I feel so fortunate to work with Pancho Pescador, Jovic Yebon, Pablo Ruiz. That's kind of the main core group. And then there are others, or many others that I've had a chance to work with. We just worked with Natty Rebel from BAMP on a project in East Oakland. But find the people who are aligned with you, not just there are so many talented artists in this world. It's not just about that. It's about your values. It's about how you want to make your work. And it's like, I say this a lot, but it's really true. It's like, for us with Hungry Ghosts, it's like a visual band. And we all play different instruments. We all have different strengths and weaknesses. But when we come together and we make something, it's greater than the sum of its parts.
Absolutely.
And those guys blow my mind every time we're on the wall. And that, it took a long, we've been working together for maybe 10 years now.
Yeah.
But there was all this time that it took to sort of find who you want your people to be in your community. And so it's I don't know, did I answer the question?
Yeah.
that's it.
It was.
How are we on time?
It was under the umbrella.
What time is it right
now?
2:45.
2:45. Okay. I gotta pick them up at 3:30, so I got a little bit of time. We're good.
Get into let's talk about process a little bit, like the art process. How do you do this? How do you do a mural?
Oh yeah, because I
think it's important for people.
Yeah.
To know.
Okay. Yeah. I like process. My process is a lot I do tons of homework and studying history, understanding the neighborhood, diving down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. So when you guys are give me an example when you did your love letter to Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
What was your process in that opportunity of that mural and design?
So love letter, the idea for love letter. I probably had that idea 10 years before I even made it. And there are a couple reasons for that. It's one, I was young, and it was an ambitious idea, and I wasn't sure how to make it. And then two was I was not sure if I was the artist that should make it. And so I was sort of waiting for another artist to do it. And there were some examples of things that were sort of adjacent to it, but no one was doing it the way that I was sort of envisioning it. So in 2018, I was invited to participate in the Bay Area Mural Festival.
Okay.
This was in Jack London, and I was like a late addition. Someone dropped out.
Yeah.
So Bip was going to be a part
Bip.
of this. He drops out.
Yeah.
And so then I was a late addition, and they were like, look, we don't have a wall, but if you want to be in this festival, we've got money for supplies, but you got to find a wall.
Okay.
So I went and found my favorite wall in Jack London.
Okay.
It's on 4th and Oak Street. And talked to the owner. He's like, you want a free mural? Because we're good. This is the festival.
Yep.
And the idea for Love Letter is to celebrate different generations of artists and activists in the city, and sort of create this visual lineage of creatives in different fields, from musicians, visual artists, dancers, poets, and try and sort of create these connections. So, so in that piece, the elders were Tarita McKell, who is a poet and a teacher and a performer, and works with young people, amazing artist. James Gales, who is like an OG watercolor artist, who's one of my favorite artists in the Bay Area. And they were the elders in the piece. And then on the other side, we had Agana, who's one of my favorite aerosol artists in the Bay Area, and she agreed to be a part of it.
Dope.
And then at the time, we painted a student from Oakland Tech named Samuel Getachew, and he was a Youth Poet Award winner. He organized a lot of student protests, very active, very inspiring young person. So we had these four figures, and the idea is that you have the older generation passing the torch to the younger generation. And so, and I mean, we painted that mural. I mean, we had, the budget was like $3,000.
Yeah.
I made no money on it because I always try and pay my assistants, money for materials. But I was like, this is my shot to ask this question, like, can I do this? Is this, and how is it going to land? And so I painted it, and again, it felt like no one even saw it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Hey, this is the thing. Doesn't anyone,
Right.
and it's like crickets, right? But, and it's not that no one sees it. It's just that, again, it takes time for things to percolate. And so, but that for me was like, okay, I can do this. And then then during the pandemic, when everything shut down, my gallery closed, everything closed, no music, no art, just silence. And I realized at that time, like, when you don't have that, how much you miss it. Being out in community, experiencing the culture and the art. So I was like, okay, we're gonna make Love Letter. So I started reaching out to artists. We started interviewing them. Worked with Steve Babeljack, who's a local photographer, photographing, and started kind of building the infrastructure to then start turning this into a series. And so we've done 3 so far. We have number 4 that we're gonna start in April of this year.
Yeah. Congrats.
Thank you. And it's a passion project, right? And the other thing is, like, if you are doing a passion project, you've got to write grants. You have to do all the things, because no one's just going to give you the money. First of all, because all that money, it's such a small, we're all competing for this very small amount of money for grants, support. So you're going to have to shoestring it. And so we shoestring it, and we cover materials, we cover equipment. If there's a little bit left over, we can pay ourselves for the work, but it's not much. But that's the good stuff. This is the stuff, these passion projects. You can do client work, you can do all these other things, which are also really wonderful and different. But Love Letter for me is kind of the thing that I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to kind of put a spotlight on the people who have been shaping the culture of Oakland for decades. And if you move here, you don't necessarily know the history and the work that people have been doing for decades and decades, and it's a special place, and so we just want to celebrate the people in the city that we love, and so we're excited about number 4.
Yeah. What I love about this story is you had this vision 10 years before it even happened, and this is what I love is when you have this vision, like artists, we have this vision of grandeur and you want to do it, but you just don't know how. Keep that vision going, like, because for me, I think manifestation is a huge thing. Like I've wanted to paint this underpass for like years, and I've just been dreaming and believing in it, and finally I got a knock on the door, man, and it was just like, is this real?
Yeah.
And there was so much bureaucratic process. And artists and bureaucrats are like water and oil. We just don't. It's tough. So Seema, my wife and CEO, she took the reins, man, and it took 2.5 years to get that. So patience, tenacity,
and navigating the self-doubt. And this goes back to what we were talking about, like the number of times that I talked myself out of doing that project because I didn't think I could do it, or I didn't think I was the one, and just working through that, and you just kind of ride the waves. And delayed gratification, that's another thing for young artists that you have to learn, is that things will not happen on your timeline. If you expect a project or an opportunity to fit neatly in a box with your 9 to 5 or your schedule or whatever, it's not going to work. You have to just be patient. We have, like you said, that took 2 years. We have projects that have been, we designed Oakland Superheroes number 5 in 2021, and we have been navigating red tape with Caltrans for 5 years. And you have to be stubborn, you have to be tenacious, you have to be a pest, but you can wear them down, and eventually it'll happen. But you just got to breathe through it and understand that just things work on different timelines, and the more ambitious the project, the slower it's going to be. But it's worth it.
Yeah,
it's good.
Hungry Ghost, that Thai, where you found about what is Hungry Ghost and where you developed that name came from, Thailand, and then the meaning of that, you apply, how do you apply it to your practice?
It goes back to so much of our practice. Like being an artist, being a painter, it's slow, it's quiet, it requires you to be alone in a studio or on a wall a lot of times, and you're stuck with your thoughts. And how you navigate your mental health is so important. And there are so many brilliant artists who have not been able to figure that out, and who, because of that, don't go on to make the work that they want to make. And so we all have demons.
Absolutely.
We all have these voices. It is universal, especially for artists, because we are more sensitive, we're empathetic, we feel everything, and we process all that, and it filters through us, and it comes out in our work. And you can end up in some very dark places. And sometimes your work takes you there, and you have to move through those dark spaces. But those voices, you have to, again, I find that when I try and like stiff arm those voices and ignore them, they get louder and more powerful. But the minute you say to that voice, all right, I hear you, thank you for your input, but I'm good right now. And don't try and bury it or fight it, but just say, look, I appreciate what you're trying to say right now. I think I'm okay. And give it a seat at the table, but don't give it the power to control you or paralyze you. And so, like, that's a big part, I think, of my practice, and I think for every artist struggles with that in different ways. And so for me, Hungry Ghost was just a reminder to show myself some grace and to not be too hard on myself, to not give that voice more power than it deserves. So
Beautiful, man. Yeah, no, that resonates for sure. What was
Mentors.
Oh yes. Last but not least, man. We all have mentors. We have these art teachers or just teachers or just people in our lives who grabbed us aside and keep your head up. I don't want to see your head down, or I love this work, and they really take you under their wing and they build you, man. And I think I give praise to my mentors, my teachers. I wouldn't be here, and coaches. I wouldn't be here without them, and they've left this scar, ingrained these voices in my head, which are the positive voices. Get up, keep fighting. You know what I mean? So tell me, who are your mentors or your art teachers that gave you that the confidence in your ability?
There are and
Give me your top.
I think I started in high school with my high school art teacher, Charmaine Pearson, who taught me everything I know about color. And so when I'm mixing color, or I'm trying to figure something out, I go back to what she taught me about color.
Gotcha.
At UC San Diego, had an opportunity to work with Ernest Silva, who's an amazing painter and installation artist who passed away. Patricia Patterson, another amazing painter, who's still with us, lives down in San Diego. Her partner, Manny Farber, painter. They were the ones that modeled what it looks like to be an artist. And they gave me an opportunity to peek behind the curtain and see their lives, and it's like,
Gotcha.
Then I had an opportunity to go to graduate school at Temple University at Tyler School of Art in Philadelphia, where I worked closely with Stanley Whitney, Frank Bramlett, Margot Margolis, and they just taught me about the practice, about the discipline, about the work, and a lot about process in the studio, and what it takes to kind of move through ideas. And so I carry their voices with me. I'm also going to just talk about the Bay Area artists for a minute, and I'm going to miss them. But when I think about not proper mentors, but in terms of inspiration,
Yes.
There are so many crews here in the Bay Area. You have Natty Rebel and Vamp with Timothy B. and Rachel Wolf. You have the Illuminaries, who've been doing their thing in the Bay for a long time. You have other crews like Trust Your Struggle, Los Pobres Artistas. You have Twin Walls Mural Company that does a lot of work in San Francisco, and they are amazing. They were featured in Love Letter Oakland #2.
Good.
You have Vogue and Agana from TDK with the PTV group. You have the bombers like NLF. Every day I get in the car and I drive around and I see the work that other artists are doing. It just gets me excited to do the work that I do. Joshua Mays is another one who is one of my favorite Bay Area artists. And if you don't know his work, you should look it up. He's got a great project going on. I mentioned Creative Shields, who gave us the wall in Jack London for the Breathe In, Breathe Out mural. He has an amazing project called The Watermelon Couch, where he goes around the country and interviews Black farmers and tells their stories. You should check that out. ABG Art Group, Sorrel Tsui. This is a great time to be an artist in the Bay. And so I just want everyone to know how much I appreciate them, respect them, and how much you motivate me to keep evolving and keep pushing. And love it here.
No, thank you for sharing, man. I was in my hometown as a kid. I had the 12-ounce Prophet magazine, and we would go to this Jimmy Z's, and it was this underground kind of shop, and I would get these 12-ounce Prophet, and I'll never forget the one that kind of inspired me the most was the Barry McGee edition, man, and
he's the best.
Twist, and that was one of my inspirations, and then Mike Giant too, and of course I had Shepard Fairey, but those were like the OGs, Mike Giant and Barry McGee, and they taught me, like, and he's in galleries and he's been through so much, but and even Mike Giant with his own brand, and those were inspirations that taught me that you could be a professional artist, you know.
You can. And the cool thing about Barry McGee is that he figured out a way to straddle the art world and the street art world
and the fine art world. Yeah.
And I think having multiple hustles is always good, because you got to follow the energy. And sometimes, like when my gallery closed in Oakland, and then I was like, all right, I got to dive into the mural work and do that. If you have multiple hustles, it creates more avenues for you to keep going. But it's all those models, all the people that came before us. I mean, I mentioned Danielle Galvez, Dan Fonts. These are when you're little, and you still see that magic. Those are the people I was looking at, and that's when the seeds get planted.
Yes,
when you're at that age, and now I'm fortunate enough to have befriended them and been able to share their influence with them, how much they influenced me with them, and that's really important to let your mentor, the people who inspired you, know that you inspired, because otherwise they'll never know.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Well, y'all, this is Mondays with Michael. Appreciate you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the next one, and comment below on who should we interview next. Until next time, guys, peace out. This is David Burke with Hunger Ghost Studios, and we'll see you on the next one. All right. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.